Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Hi. Okay. Let's see, let's get started. First, maybe we wanted to start off introducing ourselves. We're here to talk about what is a catalog, why do you need one, what's the missing link between the Lakehouse and data intelligence. I'm Michelle. I'm a product manager here at Databricks. I work on our open Lakehouse offerings. I'm based in San Francisco, and you can talk to me about Unity Catalog, interoperability, open table formats, and then where to find the best burritos in the Mission neighborhood.
Very good. I'm gonna follow up with you on that. So I'm Jason Reid. I'm a director of product here at Databricks as well. I came last year by way of the Tabular acquisition. So I was a co-founder at Tabular. We were the Iceberg-based company. Ali mentioned his keynote this morning that now Databricks full interoperability with Iceberg as a result of the acquisition. We've been working all year on that. Been working closely with Michelle and our team to get that done. And you can also talk to me about data engineering at scale. I've done a lot of data engineering in my life. I ran data engineering at Netflix for many years before doing the startup. I spent a lot of time, because I was at Netflix, and I used to talk to vendors like Databricks and Snowflake and Amazon and so forth. I spent a lot of time thinking about build versus buy decisions at Netflix, so that's an interesting topic that I have a lot of experience with. And I can talk about the best burritos in Mountain View, so we can compare notes.
Okay,
all
well,
right.
I didn't even know they had burritos in Mountain View.
Oh my goodness, okay, all right.
We will have to follow up.
We will have to follow up on that.
All right, well, I'm excited to get started. So we have a packed agenda, I think, like 35 more minutes together. So we're gonna start off maybe talking a little bit about what is a Lakehouse catalog. I mean, I think that catalog is almost a little bit of a overly used term right now. There's a lot of different types of catalogs out there, so we're gonna talk a little bit about what is that catalog and why do you need one. Talk about some of the challenges today, and then we'll talk about how Unity Catalog addresses some of those challenges. And maybe to start off just with like a quick warm-up, wanted to get to know all of you a little bit better. So we have a little interactive quiz. It's not a quiz, it's like more like it's not really a quiz, I would say. Maybe a quick survey.
You won't be graded. There's not going to be no prizes.
We won't be graded. Jason knows I like to do these internally as well, and there are grades for those.
And sometimes prizes.
And sometimes prizes, that's true.
Not today, sorry. We should have had a prize of some kind. They're t-shirts.
I know. All right, so hopefully everyone is in, and then I think we can go to if we go to the other tab, results coming in live.
Live, let's do it live, real-time data.
Oh, that's really cool. Wait, you're able to see, that's awesome. Okay, well, what technical catalog do you use today? All right, so we have 0 people using Hive Metastore, which is honestly surprising. Okay, we have
I'm very glad to hear that personally.
Yeah. And then a bunch of folks using Unity, amazing. Glue, Iceberg REST catalog. Unity is an Iceberg REST catalog, so that's almost duplicative. And then one other, and then a few folks asking what is a technical catalog. Well, great, we're actually going to talk about that today.
Good question. Very fair question, by the way.
Yeah. And then let's do this next one. Are you able to? Does this immediately work if we just move? Are folks able to start answering this one or no? If not, then I can fix that. I don't know what shows up for people's phones.
Does it not come up? Are you guys only getting one question on the quiz? Yeah?
I know.
Oh, sad days.
All right, well here, now is it working? Yes. Aha, all right.
Real time.
We're figuring this out in real time. So this is what business catalog does your organization use today? Okay, Unity,
Do I need to refresh this?
Elation, Calibra, Data Hub. What is a business catalog? That's also an excellent question. I only recently found that out myself. Other, I ran out of room. I did run out of room on this. There's a lot of business catalogs out there. For the folks that said other, I'm just curious, what was I missing? Yeah, absolutely. I was missing Informatica. Yeah, there's a lot, I think, that I was, probably Atlin, I think I'm missing from here too. Yeah. Okay, awesome. And then what is a business catalog? There's a fair amount of folks that asked that. Okay, let's look at this next one. What engines do you use today? This is also multiple selection, by the way, because you can have multiple catalogs and many folks will have multiple engines in their environment.
I think everybody does.
If you refresh it, I
There we
think
go.
you can see. Okay, a bunch of Spark. Well, that makes sense. Trino, Snowflake, Kafka. Okay, a bunch of Kafka. Other, what was the other? What was the other that I was missing? Just shout it out.
DuckDB.
DuckDB.
Yeah. Nobody?
And then last one, what open table formats do you use today? I got one
Excel.
person who
There's
said my data
Excel.
is 99% CSV.
Well, at
Two
least they're
people
honest.
actually said that.
At least they're honest. There's no Excel option.
It's true, at least they are honest. Okay, a bunch of Parquet, a bunch of CSV, which I think is actually, I mean, this is like a real answer, by the way. A lot of
Yes.
people actually have a lot of CSV
No
data. Delta Lake and then Iceberg. All right, awesome. Okay, this is helpful. I mean, here's my takeaway actually from some of this is that first, I think it'll be helpful to talk about what is a technical catalog, what is a business catalog, both of which I'm gonna maybe talk a little bit about right now. And then also what I'm also learning is that many folks have diverse environments where they'll have multiple table formats, multiple engines, maybe not anything in an open table format, it's a CSV file, still a bunch of that data dumped into object storage. And so whatever solution that you have for your Lakehouse, for organizing it, needs to be able to support all of those things. Okay, so I'm gonna start off here maybe with like a short history lesson on the evolution of Lakehouse and Lakehouse catalogs. So Lakehouse architecture, many folks will have seen this because I think maybe Ali even showed a diagram that's a little bit more abstracted version of this earlier today during the keynote. But basically, it's the separation of storage and compute defined, most importantly, by having this sort of flexible compute layer where you can bring Kafka, you can bring Spark, you can bring DuckDB to all of your data that's stored in open cloud storage. And so that can just be CSVs, and that can also be in open table formats like Delta Lake and Iceberg. And the missing link between the two is the catalog. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is we're going to talk about this box here in the middle, the Lakehouse catalog, which sort of is this connection layer between compute and between your data. And so early catalogs, they were very basic. Looks like a lot of folks here weren't using Hive Metastore, but there's many folks outside of this room who are using Hive Metastore still. And so this is sort of the, I would say, like kind of the leading technical catalog standard for many, many, many years. It's now showing maybe a little bit of its age. And early catalogs were very basic. It was basically saying, hey, I have Spark. I want it to be able to work with my data that's stored in object storage. And I just need something in between that can tell the engine where is, for this table name, my image capture logs, where is that in storage? What's the path to it, the location, maybe the format, and then maybe the schema. So really, really, really basic information. This is what you can call like a technical catalog. So that's what Hive Metastore is. I think it's basically at its core, it's about helping the engine know important things about the table or asset that's in storage and help resolve that for them. So that's a technical catalog. All right, so now your needs are evolving, right? So we started off really basic with saying we just had Spark, maybe we just had MLflow, but now you want to bring in more engines. Now you want to start doing things like access control. You want to be able to govern these data sets. Not everyone should just be able to mess around with any file that's in your bucket. Maybe you want to know more things about observability, like who is accessing the data, what is accessed, how is it accessed. You want to know things like lineage, where did this data come from, what applications maybe ingested data and brought it into this table, and then also downstream, who's using this table. And so back in 2021, we built Unity Catalog to address these problems. And so this is really an evolution. I mean, for folks who are Databricks users back then, you know that we had built our architecture leveraging Hive Metastore, because that was, again, the premier standard at the time. Unity Catalog didn't exist. Matej, our brilliant co-founder, said, hey, we need a better solution than this, and that's where Unity Catalog was born. And so since then, needs have really kept evolving. I talked about basic things like access control and observability and lineage, but now we're seeing a lot more, right? A lot more engines, a lot more compute options, really advanced applications that are coming in. This need for AI governance. You want to actually govern your tabular data sets as well as your unstructured data sets and your AI models and functions and stuff like that all together. Maybe your agents actually need to start accessing tabular data sets. I mean, that's something that we're really seeing, right? Agents are actually now creating data and producing data themselves, in addition to consuming it. And then, of course, also you're seeing multiple table formats emerging. And with these multiple table formats, then this started creating almost this concept of like metadata silos where some catalogs only support or provide better support for certain table formats. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, there's multiple engines. And so now you're seeing that the Lakehouse architecture is becoming more complex and continuing to get even more complex because now you have these discovery problems, and then you end up in this world where, oh yeah, here, I do talk a little bit about business catalog here, where it's like, you know, once I have all this unstructured data, this AI assets, this tabular data in my organization, discovery is going to become really, really important when you're thinking about scale across thousands of users, applications, and now you're thinking about even agents being a persona. Also, how do you want to make it easy for business personas to find insights and answers? You have a bunch of data now in your data lakehouse. How do you categorize this, tag metadata about it, build up like a semantic understanding about that data? And many folks call this type of catalog a business catalog, by the way. Or a reference catalog, I think is another name that it goes by. Yeah. And so there's like that piece about the technical catalog and then this piece about the business catalog. And so now you end up in this world where this might look familiar to many folks in this room, this world where you have multiple catalogs. You almost have this problem of have too many catalogs. Now you have a new problem. You have to keep their metadata in sync. And because you had all these specialized solutions, you need to stitch them together, and now you have to sync between them, and now you need a solution to sync between them. And so I think this problem has almost become recently exacerbated by this sort of explosion of catalogs. And so what we've seen is that really there's three core problems and challenges that have emerged. Now that needs have evolved, the Lakehouse architecture has evolved and become more advanced, now we see that there's three core problems with catalog interoperability that has emerged, which is that data and AI assets are siloed into different platforms. The second is that there's fragmented governance because now that you have these multiple different platforms, well, now your governance and administrative burden is sort of fragmented and disjointed across them. And then the third is that in many cases, many of these platforms maybe still aren't using open table formats or open metadata, and so you'll still get these kind of increased costs from redundant compute or storage if you're copying data around. All right, and so these problems are only multiplied by that recent explosion of catalogs I think I mentioned, and I have another slide which is like all of the logos. There's so many different catalogs and so many different specialized solutions, and many of these will look familiar to folks in the room. And there's many new offerings that have just come on the market that, again, even the same vendor will actually have multiple catalog offerings now that you need to stitch between. And then again, I threw in the Sears catalog, retail catalog joke. I guess that made the final cut on the slides.
I mean, I can appreciate it because I used to get Sears catalogs, but I'm an old guy.
Yeah, and you get burritos in Mountain View too, yeah.
Well, yeah, okay. So I was just throwing shade.
Amazing. Okay, so now we're going to talk about, well, how has Unity Catalog evolved with those needs, right? I said we built it first in 2021, recognizing some of those limitations of Hive Metastore. But now let's talk about, well, how as those needs have evolved, as our customers' needs have evolved, and the market has evolved, how has Unity Catalog evolved with it? And so I think I have like a funny joke here about we built the first version of Unity Catalog in 2021, and then I think I put Matei's face on Steve Jobs. And then since then, of course, Unity Catalog has become the standard. It's adopted by over 70% of our customers. Actually, more than over 70% of our customers, but then also many workloads also run on UC. And then now we're going to talk about the next generation of Unity Catalog, which has, well, a lot of new fancy apps, including first-class Iceberg support.
Woo.
Yep, exactly. And then also evolving to become a reference or business catalog, so what we were talking about earlier. Yeah. And then now I'll pass it over to Jason to talk a little bit about this.
Awesome, thank you, Michelle. So as Michelle mentioned, 2021, Databricks announced Unity Catalog. That was the same year that we founded Tabular. And one of the things that we did when we founded Tabular, which is sort of this iceberg-based lakehouse, was we built out a REST catalog implementation. Right? So we saw a lot of the same challenges I think that Databricks saw with Delta Lake. Not surprisingly, those same challenges exist for for companies who are trying to adopt Apache Iceberg tables. And so Tabular was an implementation of this Iceberg REST catalog interface. We donated it to the Apache Iceberg project. And now we actually see implementations of that, open source implementations, vendor implementations. Unity Catalog also is an implementation of that specification, which is fantastic. That's where we get the Iceberg interoperability from. But that was really just the beginning. And it's really exciting now that we've joined forces with Databricks and joined forces with Unity Catalog, how we can really extend. And this is like the three sort of core tenets when we think about why Unity Catalog, what should it be responsible for, what are the guiding principles for how we're building it out. These are the three things. So unified, Ali spent some time on this in the keynote this morning, which is fantastic. And he said it's not just about tables. He talked about a lot of the catalogs in the marketplace today sort of only focus on that one side where it's like tables and access controls. And that's what they think is enough for your catalog and for your governance layer. And it's really not, right? It's not just tables. Absolutely, you have to include your AI models in there. You have to include your unstructured data, your documents, images, et cetera, as well as dashboards, right? He mentioned how dashboards is like, if you have governance split off and you have your BI tool and it's got its own governance and access controls models that are different from what's in your actual Lakehouse, well, that's an easy way for people to get access to data they really shouldn't have and exfiltrates and it gets out the door. So you have to be able to include that entire ecosystem of your data estate and have governance, consistent governance on top of that. We also even saw how the apps, Databricks apps, that same governance model from Unity Catalog applies all the way to apps. We're going to see how it applies to our lake-based tables, right? So this has become even a more and more powerful construct that everything has to be unified under this governance umbrella. The other thing that we have done is, as Michelle mentioned, look, you don't have just one catalog. That's the reality in most of the companies that we talk to and customers we talk to. And so we have the concept of federation where you can actually bring your other catalogs, federate them through Unity Catalog, and then still apply that singular governance model. So even if it's not tables that are directly managed or assets directly managed within UC, we can still get that unified governance. That's really important for that single pane of glass view of your estate and consistent governance. And that end-to-end lineage, right? So you can see all the way from where data is being sourced from, coming in from those Kafka streams, all the way through to the dashboard and the reports that and tie that whole thing together. So that's peer number one. So the principle number two is that it's open. Ali said open many, many times this morning. It's like a core tenet of Databricks, the company, and that obviously extends to our catalog story. So yes, open source table formats, Delta Lake, Apache Iceberg being the primary ones. But not just that, not just the storage layer. That's really, really important, the storage layer. But the APIs, those catalog APIs with which we interface to that data also have to be open, right? For you to be able to come in and plug whatever compute system you want, and for you to be able to adopt Unity Catalog and not feel like you're just locking yourself into the next vendor problem, right? It's like, okay, my data is in open format, but now I have this catalog. And if I'm using Unity Catalog, aren't I just locking myself into Databricks? How is that different than where I was locked into my previous data warehouse vendor? And it is because even those catalog APIs, Unity Catalog APIs that you're interacting with the data are all open source as well, right? And they're not just implemented on Unity, they're implemented in many other catalogs, and then all engines use those APIs to talk to your data. So they're not using proprietary APIs from Databricks, or there's no special code from Databricks they have to get to interact with catalogs. It's all open source. And then the unique offering here, which is very unique to our Unity Catalog experience, is that because they're open formats and because they're open APIs, we actually allow any compute engine to read and write data to those tables. So you can simultaneously stream data in from Kafka to a table in Unity Catalog. You can then make updates to that table using DBR, and then you can read that data out using Trino or DuckDB or whatever you want. All those tools operate on the same single source of truth data with one unified governance layer. That's actually enforcing governance for Kafka, for Databricks, and for, say, DuckDB or Trino or what have you, Snowflake. Okay, that's really unique in the marketplace and a powerful construct. And then the last bit is that it's intelligence, right? So data plus intelligence, that's kind of the whole theme of the week, has been the theme over the past year for us. And what does that mean for that catalog layer? The one piece that shows up, which isn't maybe apparent, is that we use the intelligence that we get from how you all create and use your data, right? Because the catalog is involved in all these operations. We use that intelligence to then optimize how we physically lay out your data in the object store. Right? So this is all within the open source table format umbrella. This is still data you control, right? It's not in our storage, it's in your storage. But we can, even though it's in your storage, we can help you optimize it and so you can get great performance. We can beat proprietary storage formats and engines using open source tools because we have this intelligence. Right? We look at query patterns. What filters are you using on this table? What are the commonly used filters? What are the commonly joined tables? Can we make sure that we organize data so that when you run those queries, the next time you run your queries, they're faster. You did nothing. You just kept running your queries, and tomorrow your queries were faster than they were yesterday just because we were, laid out the data on disk more effectively. And that's that intelligence built in. And then also adding in the semantic modeling on top of this core data sets, right? So that your business users can come and use the natural language, right? And they can use the GenAI and LLMs to discover and answer questions of the business. You need that semantic modeling that really helps those LLMs not be general, but actually answer questions about your data, right, in your domain. And then obviously we can generate some of that metadata as well, right? So I would guess if you go out to your catalog system, Unity catalog for many of you, and you inventoried how many of your data assets in your Unity catalog have descriptions, table descriptions, have column descriptions, have tags. Probably a small percentage, right? Because historically this was like a manual process. It was like documentation. It never got done all the way, and lots of tables get created that don't ever get documented with metadata. So we can actually use GenAI to help automatically fill that in. We look at the name of the column. We look how that table is being used, and then we can generate descriptions and tags and such. Okay, so those are the core pillars, and we're going to dig into each one of them. Cool. So the first one is that unified governance that I talked about. And just to reiterate, right? So this is not just your tables, but your models and files as well. And then it's not just access controls. So the other thing I want to bring to light here is when we have this unified story, we also get collaboration. This is the discovery aspect. How do you find the tables that you're looking for? Not just within your company collaboration, but also collaboration with your partners and your customers through things like Delta sharing. And Delta sharing works even for Iceberg tables now. So you can Delta share everything in Unity Catalog. And it's not just tables. You can Delta share things like models as well. So you can share all these assets that are within the Unity Catalog. You can share them internally, across business units, but also with your partners externally. You get the end-to-end lineage that we talked about earlier. Quality monitoring, right? Data quality, right? Garbage in, garbage out. We talk about how important good data foundations are for all of our AI efforts and applications. And so there's built-in quality monitoring and anomaly detection, right? So we can proactively tell you, hey, this data looks off for any number of reasons, right? And then you can go investigate that. As well as the semantic layers. And one that maybe often gets forgotten, but is super important, and for customers that I talk to, cost controls. We need good cost controls. We need to understand where is the money being spent, which data sets are the ones that are actually expensive to me, which dashboards are the ones that are expensive, and are they actually being used? Right, so now with Unity Catalog, with this end-to-end lineage, and having everything from source all the way to dashboard, we can actually tell you that dashboard, what it's costing you. And not just what it's costing you to serve the dashboard, everything from source data, all the transformations, all the way through serving up that dashboard. And we can also tell you how often is it being used. Well, that's really powerful information. You can actually finally get rid of the 5,000 out of your 10,000 dashboards that no one ever looks at, but that you're still paying for. Right? It's just cleaning up the waste in the system. Okay, so that's our unified governance. And then this is the secondary piece what I talked about earlier around catalog federation. Right? It's not just the stuff that's within Unity Catalog. You have data sets in these other systems. And we want to make sure that when you're using these external compute environments, that your governance model is still applied. We do that through this concept called vended credentials. Right? So if I'm coming in and I'm going to be connecting to Unity Catalog, say from EMR, and I have access control set up on my assets in Unity Catalog, I want to make sure that EMR, that compute engine, is respecting the governance I have set up in Unity Catalog. So we do this notion of vended credentials. EMR connects to the catalog. It provides some authentication identity, right, with access tokens or OAuth. And then Unity Catalog checks the privileges. And then dynamically, it says hey, you have read access to that table. Let me dynamically create some tokens for you to go to your object store, to S3, that are scoped down to just the files that are in that table. And you have read access to those objects in S3, and that's it. And it's a temporary token that will expire when your job is over. Right, so the EMR, the compute system, doesn't have to have any direct access to underlying storage. It gets that dynamically through the catalog, and that's true across the board. All of these different engines, even though they're very different compute engines, different languages, for different purposes, streaming, batch, they still all follow this governance model through this vended credentials mechanism, and it works across all the clouds, all of your object stores. And then the last bit is federation. So you may have data sets in these other catalogs, whether that's from legacy reasons, maybe you're through acquisitions in your company, you're combining business units. Hey, I have my data's over here in Snowflake, or my data's over here in Glue, but I still want to be able to bring that into Unity Catalog, be able to see it all in a single pane of glass, and have that governance that I just talked about, right? So we can actually provide governance even on assets that are coming through other catalogs. All right, so that's sort of the unified governance story. The next pillar that we talked about in sort of our three practices around Unity Catalog is open, right? So we alluded to this earlier in the talk that over the last year we've gone in and really supported Apache Iceberg as a first-class storage citizen within Databricks. But beyond that, we're actually doing a lot of work in the open source communities. We're not one of these companies, right, that just takes open source, packages up, and tries to resell it as some sort of service, right? Like these technologies that Ali alluded to in the keynote, Spark, Delta Lake, MLflow, Apache Iceberg, the people who actually wrote that software are the main contributors in open source to these things. We spend a lot of R&D dollars at Databricks driving these projects forward. So we're not just taking what's in these communities and these open source, we're giving back a lot, making sure that what happens in those open source projects actually meets the needs of our customer base, right? And one of the things that our customer said was like, we don't like to have this decision between the two formats. Can we get rid of this? And so we've been working in the last year and actually what we call co-evolution, right? So we are adding things to both projects that actually bring them closer together. That makes our life easier. We can support both formats more simply, but also is better for our customers because they don't have to decide like, oh, if I have data that's in Iceberg, in Snowflake, is it gonna be able to do all the things that Delta Lake tables can do inside Databricks? And the answer is increasingly yes. So these were recently announced. Delta Lake 4.0 just dropped last week. So brand new Delta Lake 4.0. We're introducing catalog-based commits into Delta Lake. That's how we bring Delta Lake tables into this whole catalog-based world and making sure we can do all that intelligent work with Unity Catalog. That's a concept that very much comes from the Iceberg community. On the Iceberg side, we introduced deletion vectors. This is a concept that comes from Delta Lake, how we encode our row-level changes to tables in a very efficient way, right? So we're making small changes to tables. We don't have to rewrite big partitions or big Parquet files. And then both table formats, we introduced a variant data type that is compatible across both of them. Variants are for storing your semi-structured data. So you have your JSON strings, your semi-structured data, or column schemas that evolve or need to evolve rapidly. Variant type is a way we can actually effectively store that data in a binary format so you get better storage, better performance. This is how we're beating proprietary systems by continuing to evolve these open formats. And then this is sort of the final picture that we're trying to get to, where regardless if you're coming in through a Delta client or an Iceberg client, you come in through that Unity Catalog, those open source APIs that we talked about earlier. Underneath, you have these managed tables from Unity Catalog, and you don't have to worry about what the underlying storage format is. You don't have to worry about optimizations or management. Unity Catalog and Databricks can take care of all that for you, and you can come in with any engine that you want, right? Like that, yes, obviously Databricks Compute works great in this architecture, but so does like any other compute system or combination of compute systems that your teams need to use to get your jobs done. All right. And we talked about this a bit already. I think I already have alluded to a lot of this, so we'll skip over this slide. But yeah, open APIs, vended credentials. This is what allows us this open ecosystem, interconnectivity. There's no lock-in here whatsoever. You're free to like take these tables and move them to other catalogs. You're free to swap engines. Right? This is really future-proofing your data architecture. You can make these choices now and feel very confident that no matter what happens next year, the year after that, when all your agents start coding and now they need to bring their own tools in this ecosystem, that we're gonna be able to plug all this stuff in. And then the last bit that we alluded to earlier was the Delta sharing protocol. So this is a way for you to get your access to the assets in the Unity Catalog in a totally secure way. It uses a slightly different mechanism. Vended credentials we talked about earlier, sort of dynamic access to storage layers for compute engines. Delta sharing takes a even more restrictive approach because usually we're sharing data across companies. And so it's a highly secure way to share information from Unity Catalog with your partners and with your customers. And again, they can be using any number of tool sets on their side, right? You can share to your partners, and they may not be using Databricks, or they may not want to use Databricks as the consumption layer. That's totally okay. There's an open protocol, so many tools know how to understand and consume from Delta sharing, and so they don't have to be using Databricks to take advantage of that sharing capability. So that's also a unique offering, similar to like a data marketplace that is also totally open, right? It's not bound to a particular set of computer infrastructure.
Yeah. And one thing on that too is that in preview, now you can not only Delta share Iceberg tables, but you can also Delta share 2 Iceberg clients.
Yes, that's right.
Which is really cool.
We added an Iceberg REST catalog protocol as part of Delta sharing. So something like your Snowflake compute engine, which speaks Iceberg REST catalog, can actually consume Delta shares. Right? So again, just really open ecosystem. You don't have to copy data to Snowflake if you want to share it to a Snowflake consumer. Just put it as a Delta share, Snowflake can connect directly to it, and now we're consuming that data directly. So no more data copies. All right, and the last pillar that we sort of talked about earlier was intelligence. And so we'll spend a little more time digging on here. The way that we describe this is through this Unity Catalog managed tables. So you can have a variety of assets within Unity. The ones that get all this intelligence, that get all this optimization where we're rearranging the layout of storage on disk, that's available through this managed tables construct. This can be Delta Lake or Iceberg tables. And here's where we see we can actually reduce your storage by up to 50%. So not only are your queries getting faster, like I mentioned, right? We're choosing join keys and filtering columns, and we're laying out data appropriately, but we're also doing things like choosing the right compression codecs within your Parquet files. Like, should it be Z standard, should it be snappy or gzip, right? And it depends on the data set is the answer, and we use intelligence to figure out like what should the right compression codecs be, how should the clustering work, and so yeah, this reduces your storage bill. And because we don't make any money on storage, right? The storage bill completely goes to the cloud vendor. Everybody benefits, at least in this room, right? Maybe not your cloud provider, but everyone else, but like we don't want to spend money on storage that we don't have to. So we can save money on storage. And because most of our queries are I/O bound, right? The performance of most of our queries is dependent on how much data do I have to actually go and load from my object store. When we have less, when we actually are able to compress that data better, the I/O is better, and your queries speed up. So we load less data, we load it more efficiently, and that's why you get big improvements on query performance in a lot of cases, up to 20x, which is amazing, which is just less dollars, right? It's all a consumption-based model, so that's just less expensive for you. The other things that I didn't allude to earlier, but are really cool, and Michelle will have, I think, more talks about this later in the week, so if you want to learn more about these topics, there are more detailed talks. But something like multi-table and multi-statement transactions. So these are things that were pretty standard in data warehousing, have been for a long time, but have never yet been done on open formats, like against an open catalog APIs. And so we're pretty excited about bringing sort of multi-statement transactions to this world. Lots of use cases require that you have consistency, right, across multiple tables at the same time. I want to update this table and all the foreign keys in my relational model, atomically to make sure that my joins are always successful, things of that nature. And then we're also able to do automatic table feature upgrades because we can see all of the usage of your tables. We know which versions of DBR you're using. We know which external tools you're using, right? Then we know which features we can automatically enable that actually have support for the toolset that you're using with your data set. Because the last thing you want to do is upgrade a table to grab a new feature, and then something breaks. And so it makes everybody very nervous about like, oh, do I want to add that? I don't know what's going to break. But we do, right? We understand all the dependencies. We understand how the data is being used, so we can automatically upgrade your table so you get the latest features, best performance, confidently knowing that none of your workloads are going to break in the process. And that's something we've heard a lot of pain points from customers, and we're excited about that. And then the other big one that we're working on the second half of this year is disaster recovery, right? Again, because we see all the activity against your data in the catalog, we can take that information and then replicate it to other regions within your cloud, potentially even across clouds, right? So you get really good DR properties. And we've really hampered on the fact that these things are all fully open and interoperable. There's no lock-in involved. So this is sort of like the final big picture. This is like really the drilled-in view from maybe the high-level picture that Ali showed in his keynote. All the different engines, this is only a small subset of the things that actually work against this ecosystem. Any of the catalogs that are out there in the ecosystem, you can get those federated in as well. Make sure you can see all your data, and make sure you have unified governance. And that really can't be understated. We hear from customers a lot. I'm a data scientist. I primarily work inside Databricks. I want to build a model. And obviously, when I start any new project or I want to answer any new question for the business, it starts with like, well, where is the data? Where is the data set that I need to answer that question? And it's often not in the existing Databricks tool. Oh, that data is actually in Snowflake. But with federation, you just plug all these things in, and now your data scientists don't have to go around chasing this stuff, right? It's all discoverable in their environment, and it's governed, right? They have access to things they should have access to. So it's a really powerful, in terms of increasing the productivity of our data experts. And of our agents, right? Our agents now can also have access and see all that stuff, which means that our natural language questions of our data also get more powerful. Not just access controls, all those other things we talked about in Unity Catalog, how important that stuff is. So we got the unified governance layer and that built-in intelligence, right? You really shouldn't have your data engineering teams spending a lot of time hand tuning, hand optimizing. What partition strategy should I use? How big should my Parquet files be? Should they be 16 megabytes? Or they should be 128 megabytes? What compression codecs? All these things matter a lot. They matter a lot to your bottom line. The cost that you have for your data architecture, those things matter a ton, but you don't want to spend a lot of human engineering resources maximizing and optimizing those things. The things that machines are actually much better at than humans, and your data experts have lots of other more valuable things they can do for your business than chase these optimizations, and so we built that intelligence into Unity Catalog. All right. We're at the end.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Jason. I think, I guess just to wrap up as well, even going back to that previous slide, the session was about what's that missing link between the Lakehouse and data intelligence, and I think hopefully we've illustrated how the catalog plays this essential role as this sort of layer in between all your compute, your AI agents, your tools, and of course your governed data and AI assets underneath that, and then provide a lot of these extra intelligent capabilities on top of that by having all the observability and lineage and governance capabilities all coming through this interface. And that wraps it up. Don't forget to attend these other sessions that are coming up. Actually, there's one, if you're interested in multi-statement transactions, that's coming up in just a little bit. And then also, if you want to learn more about managed tables and the optimizations that we do there, a deep dive into that, as well as Unity Catalog Open APIs. I'm actually going to be doing that session later today at 4:10. Demoing, actually, I'm going to be demoing live using Spark, DuckDB, Starburst Trino, and Daft, a multimodal query engine, all with data sets and volumes in Unity.
Awesome.
And then also check out tomorrow the future of open table formats as well. So we're talking a little bit more about that co-evolution piece that Jason was alluding to.
Yeah, so final call to action. If you're not already using Unity Catalog, I think most of you already are, but start or double down, right? Finish off those Unity Catalog migrations. There's a lot of value you're unlocking for your business by getting there. If you're not using managed tables and taking advantage of the intelligence, the optimizations, start or accelerate those migrations to managed tables that are going to save you a lot of money and make your life easier for your data teams. And thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.